Okay, it is now 15 sharp. I think we can start. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the EFSA webinar on the call for tenders on supporting detection of regulated EU plant pests. Thank you for joining us. Fortunately, we had more than 120 registrants. We are very pleased to see your interest and to have participants from different organizations and countries with us today. My name is Efter Piadamu. I'm part of EFSA's Plant Health Monitoring team, and I will be moderating today's session. Together with my colleagues, we are hosting this webinar to provide you with a clear overview of the call and to guide you through its key procedural and scientific aspects. Moving on to the next slide. I would like to talk you through some of the housekeeping rules for the management of this webinar. First of all, you are in listen-only mode, which means you are not able to ask questions orally, but you can submit your questions in writing at any time using the chat box you see on your right. We will have two dedicated Q&A sessions where we will address your questions specifically. I would like to inform you that depending on the number of questions we will receive, we might not be able to address all of them live. However, please be assured that we will do our best to cover as many as possible during the two Q&A sessions. Moreover, the event is in English, and I would like also to notify you that it is being recorded. The recording will be published on the EFSA website shortly after the event, together with all the call documents and today's presentation. Finally, after the event, you will receive a link to a short satisfaction survey. We kindly ask you to complete it, as your input will help us improve future webinars. Next slide, please. So, with that in mind, let's now take a look at today's agenda. After the short introduction of my colleagues who will be presenting, Andrea will outline the main conditions of the call, how to apply, and the timeline. After that presentation will be a dedicated Q&A session during which Andrea will try to respond to any questions that you might have regarding the tendering process. Next, we have Sibren, who will present the scientific aspects of the call. This will be followed by a second Q&A session where Sibren will address any scientific or technical questions you might have. And finally, there will be time for closing remarks at the end of the session. Moving on to the next slide, I would like to introduce today's moderator and speakers. I will be the moderator and we will have two speakers, Andrea Ferrara from Procurement Team and Sibren Vos from Plant Health Monitoring Team. This brings us to the next slide. And I think it's now time to give the floor to Andrea, who is going to provide the overview of the tendering process and procedural aspects of the call. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Terpi, and good afternoon, everyone, also from my side. Thank you for attending this session. Maybe we can move to the next slide. As anticipated, the aim of this specific session, which I'm presenting, is to give you some information about the call for tenders with a focus on the financial and contractual conditions. So EFSA has published an open procedure, which means that this call is published on the official journal of the European Union and accessible to anyone. This procedure is divided into 3 lots, and you see on the screen the maximum ceilings of each of the 3 lots. The procurement documents are published on a link, which you see visible on the screen, which brings you to the funding and tenders portal, which is also the place. It's a crucial place, really, because you will be able to ask questions there, but also it's used to submit your tenders afterwards. So this call aims to bring to the signature of 3 framework contracts, and the maximum duration of these contracts is 48 months. Below, I've brought also a link on the guide for tenderers, which may help to reply to questions you may have about how to compose a consortium and the role of the different partners and possible subcontractors. Let me add a few words about subcontracting. So there are some limitations to subcontracting, which are clearly explained in the tender specification. So my warm invitation is to consult the tender specifications and to check whether and for which type of tasks subcontracting is possible. And another element is that when you will submit your tender, you are required to submit some evidence. So the evidence in this specific case consists mainly of CVs of key experts you propose for the assignment, also the experience of the consortium, but as well as you will be asked to provide some information on the financial capacity of the consortium as a whole. Few other small words about the other procurement documents you will find online, aside of the tender specifications, where you have also the timeline of the call, which I will recap later. You also have the draft contracts. There is 1 draft contract per each lot, where you have all the contractual conditions explained in details, and the forms that you will need to use to compile your financial offers. Maybe we can move to next slide. Here we have put the QR codes as well as the links that brings you to the tender specifications. In particular, here it's about part 3, where there are all the instructions on how to submit a tender. And the link on the right-hand side of the screen brings you to the e-submission, which is the tool of the European Commission, which is to be used to submit your tender. We can move to the next one. That's a bit the timeline which we envisage for this. We launched the call in October, means this was visible to anyone on the official journal. And on 26th February, we have the deadline to submit a tender. Then we envisage to run the evaluation in March and to come to an award in April 26. ideally to start already working between April and May with implementation. So we can move to the next slide. I guess the previous one was my last slide for the presentation. Efterpi, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea. We are now at the first Q&A session. If you haven't already written your questions in the chat, please do so, and I will share with Andrea to address those questions for you. I will give some, just a few seconds for questions to appear. Okay. Okay, Andrea, I have a first question for you. I'm reading it out. Are ground surveys foreseen? If so, is it possible to subcontract them? Andrea,
Yes. So, okay, I guess I can now reply. So yes, the answer is yes. So the ground surveys are foreseen and it is possible to subcontract them. There are, as I understand, limitations only for lot 3, and this is not falling under lot 3. But Sibren, I don't know if you would like to complement the answer on this element.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. There is a limitation for subcontracting on the objective 1 of each one of the lots. The objective 1 that I will explain later is about state of the art of the knowledge that cannot be subcontracted. The object 2 is about developing a methodology that can also not be subcontracted. The objective 3 is to validate this methodology using case studies, and that can be subcontracted. And we imagine that ground surveys fall within the remit of this objective 3. And objective 4, that is related to dissemination and webinars and workshops, etc., that can not be subcontracted as well. I hope it was clear. Back to you, Andrea.
Okay, thank you very much both for your answers. I have a second question for you, Andrea. The budget for each lot is calculated on the entire duration of the project, 4 years, correct?
Yes, indeed. So the budget which I presented below, which is divided per lot, is calculated for the entire duration of the framework contract. So with the framework contract, we envisage to place order forms, and what we estimated for the total envelope of each lot should cover the whole duration, which is 48 months, 4 years.
Okay, another one question, Andrea, for you. Are the cost no? How will be split the budget across the consortium? Are there some limitations?
So the way in which market operators, consortium members organize themselves, it's something which we do not look at in the frame of procurement. So that's something we leave completely up to market operators. We are not gonna ask you details on how you intend to split the budget whatsoever. So you are completely free to organize yourselves.
Okay, we have another question. Is Switzerland eligible to participate to the call? Andrea, for you.
I will need to consult, but if I'm not wrong, Switzerland is not eligible. But I would like to consult the guidelines just to provide you with a certain reply, if you don't mind. Maybe if we can move to the next question. In the meantime, I will check for this specific one.
Okay, and I have one more for you. Are the costs for the 2 days workshop included in the budget? Let's say location and catering.
Yes. So I guess this is referring to the workshop foreseen. The costs are supposed to be included in the price you provide with your offer. So the cost of all activities, including this one.
Okay, I don't see any other questions pending in the chat box. So I think we can close this Q&A session. Of course, I would like to clarify to you right now that if you have some other questions, you can submit them in the EU Tenders portal, where all the answers will be officially answered and published.
I can reply on the question on Switzerland if you want.
Yes, sure, Andrea. Yes.
Yeah. So sorry, I wait for the live. Okay, I'm back live. So in the guide for tenderers, the list of entities which are eligible to apply as tenderers, and this includes entities from all EU member states, EEA countries, which cover Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein, and then countries under association agreements, which are North Macedonia, Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Kosovo, but also Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. And Switzerland is not in this list. So entities from Switzerland, as well as from many other third countries, can be involved in consortia as subcontractors, but not as part of a consortium. So that's certainly a clear limitation. So we invite to comply with this limitation.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea. There is another one question about consortium partners. How will the consortium partners formally appear? Will there be a principal investigator or other forms?
So I'm not sure what is meant in this context with principal investigator. When we have a consortium, we have one entity coordinating the consortium and the other entities who can join as partner, and they are jointly liable towards EFSA. So the consortium partners, as I was saying, there are these limitations. Back in the past, I was used to this wording principal investigator referring to physical persons. I don't know if the question is about if physical persons can be involved in consortia. So physical persons can be involved. Obviously, they need to comply with the eligibility criteria. They need to be based in eligible countries and bring a contribution to the consortia. So, but I'm not sure, to be honest, if my answer is really replying to the doubt that you have. Otherwise, the invitation again is to consult the guide for tenderers.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea. We can, let me just see if there are any other questions. Okay, there is another one for you. I would like to know, I'm reading it out to you, Andrea. I would like to know whether in the articles that will be published based on the results of the work, the people who prepare the required documents will be included among the authors, in which position and where these articles will be published.
Okay. So, well, I'm happy to contribute to the reply to this question, but it's not entirely falling under my responsibility. So I guess in the frame, of this procurement, you will produce some results. The results will be owned by EFSA. So perhaps you may be used to grants where this is not the case. In this case, we are asking market operators to produce some work for us, and we EFSA acquire the ownership. Under certain conditions, we may grant to the entities that will be working the possibility to make scientific publications. I don't think at this stage, but please, I also invite Sibren to reflect on this element. I don't think that at this stage there are already indications on whether we are asking to the operators to produce scientific articles, and if we have already ideas on where these are supposed to be published. I don't think we are that specific, but Sibren, please, if you want to complement on answering.
Yes, thank you for that. So I understand it's a very important question here. So here, as you clearly indicated, Andrea, we are buying the service, so we get the ownership of the service. But of course, we understand the need to increase visibility of your work through scientific publications. And you will be duly recognized in the work that is being done and that is going to be published in the EFSA environment, in the EFSA journal, because the idea is to deliver some guidelines, clear guidelines and external scientific reports following the EFSA procedures for publishing this work and for recognizing you. In addition to that, in agreement with EFSA, you can publish some scientific work deriving from this work, but that should not completely overlap with the work that we are doing in this context. So if it is complementary, and you can use the research results of this investigation in these contracts. If it is complementary to the EFSA reports, then in agreement with EFSA, it could be published in the journals, in the scientific journals. I hope this answers, clarifies the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Sibren and Andrea. I'm looking at into the live chat. I don't see any other questions. So I think we can close this Q&A session and proceed on with the next presentation. We can move to the next slide. Thank you. So it's time to hand the floor to Sibren, who will outline the main scientific aspects of the call. Sibren, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Pepi. So I will give you a brief overview of the scientific overview of this project. And the idea is we launched this project because we don't have the full knowledge of it. So we might remain quite vague because this work should be elaborated by the contractors that we will then award the contract to. So next slide. So as you know, when we have an invasion of a plant pest, because here we are dealing with plant pests, when we have an invasion of a plant pest, after its introduction in an habitat, in an environment, the pest is first establishing, and then it will its prevalence will grow, and it will reach an exponential growth phase where land managers might become aware of the presence of the pest, and if growing further, even the public might become aware of it. And if we look in parallel, the cost of control of those pests, they are really increasing while the prevalence of the pests in an area is increasing, meaning that as early as possible after its introduction, prevention and eradication might still be possible. But if we wait too long, then only local control might be envisaged. And it is in this context, next slide, please. It is in this context that the European Commission, the Plant Health Law, the 2016-2031, lays down a series of requirements that are connected to the detection of the pest at early stages, at low levels of prevalence of pests. And here in particular, we are dealing with this Article 22 that provides some requirements to perform surveys of Union quarantine pests in a multi-annual framework, and those requirements are defined for the Union quarantine pests in this Article 22. There are also some other articles, in particular the Article 24, that is extremely relevant, for which the priority pest requirements are laid down, in particular where we are indicating for those 20 pests that are priority pests for the European Union, annual surveys are compulsory, and some indications on the minimum survey efforts are also indicated there. Next slide, please. So, as I just said before, it is important to find the pest as early as possible after its introduction. And to do that, it is, as it is impossible to inspect all the host plants in an area, then we need to think of having a sample of that population of host plants. And that sample should allow to infer the conclusions on the entire population. That sample should be representative of the entire population. So only if we are able to have a sample, then we can start looking for a pest. And in fact, we need this sample that is calculated based on science. We need statistics behind the scene to be able to have robust surveys designed. And then next slide, please. So in this context, EFSA has developed a methodological framework and a toolkit to be able to support European member states in the planning and execution of their survey activities, in particular connected to the requirements of the EU legislation. And here we are talking of 3 types of surveys. And they are all pest freedom surveys, surveys that are based on the demonstration of absence of a pest, or building evidence of absence of a pest, in other words. So when we go to the first type of surveys, we're talking of detection surveys, where we're asking ourselves if the pest is present in an area. So here we assume the pest is absent, and we want to demonstrate it is not there. There are a second type of surveys that are the delimiting surveys. So we have found the pest in an area, we have an outbreak, we know the pest is present. What we want to know is how far it has spread. We want to delimit the area within which the pest is circulating. We want to delimit the area to further protect the rest of the territory with a demarcation. And the third type of surveys that are in reality detection surveys, but with different levels of precision, are the buffer zone surveys. So those surveys that are performed around the infested areas, in areas well defined around the infested areas, the areas that have been delimited with the previous type of survey that I explained. And we want to know if the pest is spreading further. We want to protect the rest of the territory from this pest in this infested zone. Next slide, please. So to design those surveys and to calculate the sample size, the methodological framework that EFSA has established deals with a series of questions. The first question we are asking ourselves is, where is it, or what is the pest about? And when can we find the pest? So here we are trying to understand what is the life cycle of the pest. We try to characterize the pest in its habitat. And then linked to that, we want to know, want to characterize the host plant population. We want to know where the pest can be found. We need to know where we are going to look for this pest. So it is very important to characterize that host plant population. And a third parameter that we need to characterize is the method of detection. How are we going to find this pest? What are the methods that are available that can help us in finding the pest if the pest is there. So once we have addressed these different questions that we have addressed in the pest survey cards, that is a series of documents that we have published during the last years, we need then to transform this qualitative information, descriptive information. We need to transform that, or the member states need to transform those information into survey parameters that are used to calculate, to compute how much we have to survey. And this is the part where we are particularly interested for this form. So in the survey parameters on the target population, so that is the host plants, where are we going to look for the pests? That's what we call a target population. We need to characterize it clearly in terms of its structure into the environment and in terms of the size of each subdivision that we will have identified. And of course, here in this part, when we are trying to understand where the pest is present, we can also have areas, defined areas, where there's a higher probability of finding the pest. And those are the risk areas for which we need to define relative risks. And the second important information is to transform the information, descriptive information, and the list, and to understand from the list of available methods for detection of the pest, we want to know how well these methods are performing in finding the pest. And that is where we are assessing, we try to assess, and we try to support the member states with what we call the method sensitivity. What is the probability to find a pest in a specific tree, in a specific field, if the pest is present, using the different methods. So these are two extremely important parameters that we need to characterize properly to be able to make the calculation of the survey sample, how much we will have to survey in the field. I am here skipping the part that is linked to the decision directly of the risk managers on the resources and acceptability of risk, and the trade-off between the resources available for controlling the pests, for eradicating the pests, and the acceptability of the risk can be translated into what we call the design prevalence. But here we are not going to deal with this aspect. Next slide, please. So a small zoom on the target population, on the structure of this target population. We want to understand, and here this slide shows it, for a country, in particular here I took the Netherlands. For the Netherlands, we want to understand how the landscape is divided into homogeneous areas. And here we can think that we have agricultural areas, we have forest areas, and we have urban areas. And here we distinguish them because we think that a sample within an agricultural area is different, is giving different information than a sample we will take in a forest area, and then a sample we will take in an urban area. We try to decompose or to divide the survey area into homogeneous units. And those are what we call the epidemiological units. And within these epidemiological units, we have risk areas. As I mentioned before, those are the areas where we have a higher probability to find the pest, and because it might be the end point of a pathway of an introduction of a pest. And here, for example, we can think about garden centers. We can think about specific host plants. We can think about nurseries. We can think about risk locations that are connected to the trade of some commodities, etc. And then for each one of these these subdivisions of the target population, we need to know how we count them, how we estimate the size of these subdivisions. And for estimating the size, we need to understand what is the elementary unit in these different subdivisions that can help us to count the size of these. And here, in this case, it is illustrated by a host plant. A single host plant would be the inspection unit. So the elementary unit that defines the size of the subdivision. And this is the unit, is defined as a unit on which we apply the detection method. So in this case, it is a plant. In the case we are looking for visual symptoms, etc. In the case we use a trap, it should be not the single plant, but all the different plants that could be covered by that same trap. Next slide, please. So this was to characterize the target population, and we will need this information because in the part of this call we are really trying in the context of this call we are really trying to give some more information using these different detection methods on the structure of the target population. But we are also very much interested in the performance of the detection methods. And here in this graph that you see on the upper left side of the screen, it was built based on Xylella fastidiosa outbreak in some years ago in the Puglia region. So we tried to understand at which point we would be able to or if we are seeing symptoms on a plant, what is the level of infection we really have in the field? So here in this graph, you can see that when we have 12% of the plants that show visual signs of visual symptoms of the pest, already 90% of the plants might be affected in the area. That means that the visual examination alone is not sufficient to be able to detect the pest. It's not performing well. It will never be possible to detect the pest early enough to be able to comply with the survey requirements. And it is therefore needed to complete the visual examination with a series of other methods. In particular, we might need, according to the plant health law, we should base our surveys on visual examination and, if appropriate, complete them with sampling and molecular identification or laboratory testing. And these different elements, they define basically the method sensitivity. So the sequence of the different methods that we are deploying for detecting and identifying the pest, all the way from the field operations to the laboratory. So with this, we can calculate what is the performance of the method in detecting the pest. In the case we are going to use traps, we need to estimate what is the effectiveness of the traps to attract the pest and to capture the pest. In the case of remote sensing, we want to know also what is the capability of these techniques to be able to help us in the detection of specific symptoms or specific crop stresses connected to some pests and diseases. And the same accounts for the eDNA analysis. Can we use eDNA analysis to be able to contribute to this method sensitivity and try to estimate or improve our capability of detecting the pest at an early stage? Next slide, please. So this framework contract is divided in 3 lots, as it was explained before. There is one lot that is particularly focusing on trapping methods, insect trapping in particular. And there is a second lot that is dealing with environmental DNA analysis. And there is a third lot that is addressing or is looking at the use of remote sensing techniques. So this is, as it was explained before, a framework contract over a period of 4 years. And the goal of this framework contract is to support the member states with robust, harmonized pest surveys, applying existing knowledge and transferring the research into practical tools. We don't need to have particular new research here. What we want is to use existing research, existing tools, and try to see to what extent knowledge transfer is possible to integrate that directly into the surveillance activities of the member state that are handled by the member state NPPOs, National Plant Protection Organizations. Next slide, please. And a small zoom on the trapping methods. So all the 3 lots are articulated in a similar manner, where we have 4 different objectives. First objective is about making the state of the art of the knowledge and the review of the scientific information available. So for the traps in particular, we are interested in making an inventory of the specific and generic traps that are available for the specific pest, and if possible for groups of pests if we have multiple bait, multiple lure traps. So, and this is because we had a first question that we are asking ourselves, and in consultation with member states we have been looking at these different questions. So how to choose a trap? Which trap is the most appropriate one for a given pest? So that is a key question, because there is not so much information available on this. The second objective that's a common objective to all the 3 lots is about the planning and the design of the surveys, and it is about the integration of this knowledge that we have captured in the first objective, integration of this knowledge within the methodological framework that we have developed, the pest surveillance toolkit. And here we are asking ourselves, how well do the traps perform at low pest prevalence? We assume the pest is absent in an area, so we are laying traps to be able, we are deploying traps to be able to capture a pest, an insect, when it has been introduced, as soon as possible after its introduction. We also want to know, for the delimiting surveys, when the prevalence of the pest is a bit higher, what are the best traps and what is their performance at higher pest prevalence levels. And here, this information on the traps performance is crucial to be able to calculate the sample size. And it will also be necessary in this part to think about what is the optimum strategy for deployment of traps in an area. How do I deploy them spatially and in an area to have more higher chances to capture the insect at a lower level of prevalence? And we need, of course, at the end of this work, to have the delivery in the form of guidelines and standardized protocols that we can then integrate into our work. And the third objective that is common for the 3 lots is the application, the implementation of this method within the context of pest surveillance. And here, this application should be based on case studies that can help in validating and confirming the correctness of the options of the solutions that were proposed in the second objective. It is very important also to understand in the optimization process if we can use one single trap to capture many different pests, because we are dealing with insects we don't have yet in the territory. So if we can have multi-lure traps, it's much more efficient than to use a single trap specific for each individual pest species we wish to capture if it is there. The fourth objective of this call is about the dissemination and the training. So once we have reviewed the state of the art of the knowledge, once we have developed a methodology to integrate this in the survey framework, and we have validated this with an application with case studies, we want the work to be disseminated And we want to provide training to the member states, and we want the contractor to support us in this activity by sharing the information and receiving inputs from the member states in a workshop to also improve and to capture the needs of the member state in a different manner, and to verify the accuracy of the work, and also to disseminate really the work through webinars. This was about the lot 1. Let's go to the lot 2. It is about the environmental DNA. So here we have the same 4 objectives, and we want to address here in particular the 3 following questions. So under what conditions eDNA analysis can be integrated in a survey process as a pre-detection method? The fact that we find DNA or plasmid or DNA sequence of a pest in an area doesn't mean the pest is present in the area. Therefore, we call it a pre-detection method. It could help in deciding on prioritizing the survey efforts, and it could help in the choice of the risk locations. In the case we have a suspicion of a pest, we might put more efforts in that area where the suspicion is to look for the pest. Therefore, we think that the eDNA analysis can be quite complementary to the traditional detection methods that are deployed in surveillance. Then, can we use this eDNA analysis to define and to delimit the areas with the highest likelihood of pest presence? That is the second question that we want to address. So this is more connected what I talked about before, the risk areas. So this is how can we use the eDNA results, the eDNA analysis to delimit or to define boundaries of risk areas. Also, we would like to know, as I said before, how the eDNA analysis can improve the overall performance of the detection in a survey. And the 4 different objectives are followed as well for this lot, as I explained before. Can we go to the next one? And this lot is about the remote sensing. And here again, the same 4 objectives. And here the questions we want to address with the contractor that is going to work on this lot is, can we map the target population using remote sensing? The target population that we are interested in here is for detection surveys, maybe over large agricultural areas, over forest areas, or around urban areas, etc. Can we also, looking at those images that we receive, can we also try to delimit risk areas? Can we estimate as well the size of each subdivision using imagery, remote sensing imagery? What type of remote sensing imagery, what type of remote sensing techniques we need to apply for each one of the conditions is what we need to explore with the contractor. And can we measure the spread in an infested zone? So if we have an outbreak situation, can we follow the front line of an infection to update our delimiting surveys and demarcation of an area? And the other series of questions that are very important is, can we use remote sensing imagery? What type of imagery to be able to detect symptoms of pests and directly use it as a detection method or as a pre-detection methods? And those are the types of questions that we need to address in the course of the development of this work. And the next slide, please. So just to wrap up very briefly, so we are focusing exclusively on EU quarantine pests or on regulated pests in the EU that are EU quarantine pests, that are pests for which emergency control measures are in place, and also protected zone pests. We are not interested in doing specific research for this work. We are interested in using research results, research that has been done in the frame of other projects and to transfer it to this methodological framework. And yes, we want, very importantly, to produce integrated and practical and user-friendly tools to be used directly by the inspection services in the EU member states at the end of this, this work. And I think this was what I wanted to say, so I am very happy to hand back the floor to Esther.
So thank you very much, Sibren. We now arrive at the second Q&A session dedicated to the scientific aspects of the call. I see a first question for you, Sibren. I'm reading it out. I would like to know whether in the articles that will be published based on the results of the work, the people who prepare the required documents will be included among the authors, in which position and where these articles will be published.
So, yes. So thank you. Yes, thank you for this question. I think we have already addressed this question in the previous Q&A, but I can briefly summarize. As we said, in agreement with EFSA, you can then publish outside the EFSA journal, you can then publish the work, but it has to be done in agreement with EFSA as long as the work is not duplicating the EFSA work, but it is complementary to the EFSA work. And the authorships will follow, obviously, the typical authorship that is linked to the scientific journals, and EFSA having the ownership of the outputs you might need to envisage to include EFSA as well as co-author if EFSA has been involved there. Yeah. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sibren. There is another one question. Does Objective 1 of Lot 1 refer to all the priority pests?
So Objective, yes. So Objective 1, that is the review of the state of the art of the knowledge for Lot 1, that is about the trapping methods. It refers to not the priority pests, it refers to all the regulated pests in the European Union that include the Union quarantine pests, that include the priority pests, and that include as well the pests, the protected zone pests, and the pests for which emergency measures are in place.
Okay, there is one more question. For Objective 3 of Lot 1, will the case studies focus on species that are already present in our country? Additionally, what criteria will be used to select these species?
Thank you for that question. It's a very important question. So here, we don't know. We are waiting for your proposals to see what are the criteria you will use to be able to test the findings we will make, and we need to make sure that those case studies are representing well the objectives of what we want to achieve here. So what happens is that we are dealing majority with pests that we don't have in the European Union, meaning that you could envisage to have some tests and some data collection that you could envisage some data collection in third countries where the pest is present, of course. In the case you have possibilities to have data collection activities within the EU on outbreak sites, etc., then it could as well be envisaged. What are the criteria? That is something that we are waiting for in your proposals. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Sibren. Another one question. For lot 1, we are not supposed to create new knowledge. However, survey parameters are lacking for many priority quarantine pests. This is particularly the case for sampling effectiveness. How to deal with this uncertainty?
So for lot 1, it's exactly the purpose of this work. So for lot 1, on the trapping, we want to know how, for lot 1 on the trapping, we want to know how well the traps are performing in attracting a pest in an area. So what is the probability that the trap will capture a pest that is within the area covered by the pest? By the trap, if the pest is in the area. But this question, if we knew it, if we had that survey parameter, we would not need to launch the call. But the idea here is that we need to have a proposal, we need to have a methodology to be able to estimate the effectiveness of the trap. And today we don't have it. That is the idea, to estimate the sensitivity of the trap itself. We want to know how well the trap is performing in capturing the insect. And that is the purpose of this call. If we had that survey parameter, we didn't need to launch the call. Back to you, Anna.
Okay, there is another one question. How should the technical proposal be prepared and presented? Is there a specific template? This question has already been addressed on Funding and Tenders portal, so you can check the answer directly on this portal. And I can move now to a next question. Will it be possible to patent, and whose property will the patent be? Sibren, this one is for you.
I think this, I don't know if this question is for me. I don't think we are dealing with patents, but here in this situation, we have never seen this, but I think we have the copyrights and we have the ownership of the outputs of this work, because we are funding it in the form of a procurement. Maybe Andrea can confirm that again.
Yes. Yes, absolutely, Sibren. I can confirm that the ownership stays with us. I'm not sure if there is really a scope for patenting any elements here, but in any case, the ownership would stay with EFSA.
Okay, I have one more question. Does objective 1 of lot 2 and 3 refer to all the quarantine pests?
So the objective 1 is the state of the art of the knowledge. It deals with all the union quarantine pests, with the protected zone pests and the pests for which emergency control measures are in place, as it is clearly indicated in the tender specifications. There is a question, maybe I can, back to you.
Yes, there is a linked question to the one was asked before. I'm reading it out. There is a patenting policy. Is it possible to patent some technologies, techniques that will be discovered during the project, and how will be distributed the percentage of ownership?
So basically, I cannot give you an answer on this, but what is very clear, as I said before, I repeat the answer, EFSA has ownership of the outputs, and I don't think we want to discover new things here. As I said, this is all about knowledge transfer. So that means we want to use existing research results and transfer them into a more practical mode in the guidelines, in the support we give to the member states for executing their surveys. So it's not about research, and therefore I have a doubt we will be able, or we will find patents based on this work.
Okay, there is one more question for you, Sibren. Where can I easily find the list of the quarantine pests? And you think, are there pests interesting for forest preservations?
So the quarantine pests are a series of pests that are listed in the EU regulation. So I invite you, in the context of this grant, we have given some links in the context of this call for tender, in the context of this procurement. We have in the tender specifications, we have provided links of different regulatory documents, and you can explore those, and you will find the list of the different pests and diseases that are regulated in the EU. We are dealing here exclusively with regulated organisms. Yeah. So you can find them, and I repeat, here we are dealing with union quarantine pests, so it is a well-defined list in the regulation. We are dealing with pests for which emergency control measures are in place. Again, this is clearly stated in the regulation, and we are dealing with protected zone pests that are clearly defined in the regulation.
Okay, one question for Andrea. Could you please verify the available funding for each lot? In the tender specification document, it's detailed as, and for each lot, Andrea, there is the amount of money
Yes.
is declared. So can you, yes, confirm that?
All right, so thanks for asking this question, because it gives us the possibility to remind that there was a corrigendum which was published on 20 November, so a week ago. In fact, in the initial version of documents, the amounts of lot 2 and lot 3 were wrongly indicated. So let me remind what are the correct amounts. For lot 1, it's correct, it's what you wrote, 750. While for lot 2 is 350,000, and for lot 3 is 500,000, 500,000. So I invite you to download the latest version of the tender specifications, which are accessible online. You will see they are referred to as version 2.
Okay, there are some questions that are retrieved in writing from the portal. There is one. How were the 5 EU countries and then 10 species to be monitored selected? Can we make independent proposals, or are they already selected areas? How many hectares must be monitored for each of these areas? Is there a minimum?
Okay, so what we need is to have the rationale that you have in the choice of those case studies. Okay, where, what pests, which areas, in which locations, etc. We need to have the rationale to be able to use that information to validate and to think about confirming the approach that has been made in the guidance document in the previous objective. So it is important that this comes from your proposal and from your work on how we are going to deal with that. We, at this point, we cannot impose any of these countries, etc. This is something that you need to think about and that you need to propose based on the findings we will make in Objective 1 and in Objective 2.
Okay, thank you very much, Sibren. There is a question for Andrea. I'm reading it out. I would like to ask about the consortium requirements and submission procedure. In particular, are there any limitations regarding consortium composition? And is the proposal submission handled exclusively by the coordinator, or are there partners also involved during the submission phase?
So thanks for this question. So my invite is to check to two sections in particular of the tender specifications, and I'm going to explain you something. So in part 3, you have all the guidelines on how to submit a tender. And in the submission, the critical role is played by the coordinator. So to my knowledge, the partners are not supposed to be involved in the submission, but please consult these guidelines with a specific focus in part of what is written in part 3. While in part 2, there are mentioned the selection criteria on which we give some indications of what are the capacity that the consortium as a whole has to comply with. In particular, so let me mention section 2.4, which is page 34 of the tender specifications. You will find all the professional and technical professional capacity that the consortium as a whole has to meet for the different lots. So when it comes to limitations regarding consortium composition, there are the limitations which are imposed actually by regulation to us. We can only accept tenders submitted by entities based in EU member states and in a list of other countries. Full list, you can find it on the Guide for Tenderers of EFSA. You can type it on Google, you will find quite easily, or on our website. You have the list of all the countries which are eligible to participate as consortium members. I tell consortium members and clarifying that subcontractors are not counted as consortium members. And for subcontractors, there is not geographical limitations, so they can be from everywhere in the world, basically. But for subcontractors, there are limitations on type of tasks that they can perform. And this is clearly defined in the tender specifications. And that's back to you, FTP. Thanks.
Okay, I think there are no more pending questions, so we can close this Q&A session and continue to the next part. Thank you very much for your questions, and thank you, Sibren and Andrea, for your answers. So, to wrap up briefly, as mentioned earlier, the recording of this webinar will be published on EFSA's website in the coming days. I would also like to remind you that you can continue submitting your questions through the EU Funding and Tenders portal with the submission process open until 26th of February. Finally, we kindly ask you to complete the satisfaction survey you will receive shortly. Your input is important and helps EFSA improve future webinars. Next slide, please. And we are now coming to the end of today's webinar, a bit earlier than scheduled. All that remains is to thank our speakers, Andrea and Sibren, for their contribution, and also the technical team supporting us behind the scenes for ensuring the smooth delivery of this event. Finally, I would like to thank all of you for your participation, time, and attention. We hope that today's webinar has been useful. useful and informative for you. And with this, we will close the session. Thank you once again, and we wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Goodbye.